Hi, this is Gabe from FluentForever.com. In this second video, we're going to talk about Russian's vowels. My primary goal here is to get you familiar with the IPA symbols for these vowels and to give you a rough sense of how they fit in your mouth. Keep in mind, though, throughout this whole process that the better you learn to hear these sounds, the better you'll be able to keep track of which one is which, and the better you'll produce them. We're going to be talking a bit about tongue placement, so to give you a rough sense of that, try this. Compare e, and a in English, as in seat, set, and sat. You'll notice your tongue starts up high, e, goes to the middle of your mouth, and then goes down to a. So your tongue can go up and down. It can also go forward and back. Compare as in bet and as in but. Your tongue will go forward for and then pull back for bet, but. Now, if you'd like a much more in-depth discussion about vowel formation, check out some of the videos linked below, but for the beginning, that's about all we're going to need. So, let's get to some Russian. Russian vowels are much simpler than the consonants. With all those hard and soft variations, we had to deal with some 37 consonants. Here, we'll need to deal with 10 sounds, 7 main vowels that show up in stressed syllables, and 3 reduced vowels, which are basically sloppy, unstressed versions of those first 7. And as before, Lilia is here to help us out.
Hi.
We'll start with the easiest two, E and U.
E shows up in Russian's igloo, me, and English's me.
It's basically the same in both languages, unless your dialect of English actually uses 2 vowels when you say E. If you say something like me or may, well, you'll need to get rid of that first vowel and stick to the second, me. In IPA, you'll spell that with a lowercase I.
U shows up in Russian's улица, nu, and English's new.
Again, this vowel is pretty much the same in both languages, but as we just mentioned with E, some dialects of English will use 2 vowels here, something like new, where Russian consistently will use just one pure U, nu.
Next comes A as in angel or fun.
This vowel is similar to English's A as in father, but it's a bit more forward in your mouth.
You can get a feel for that by comparing the words fawn and fan in English. When you say fawn, your tongue is low and far back in your mouth, and when you say fan, your tongue moves forward. The Russian vowel is around halfway between those two. Fun.
Now let's look at the letter E.
It's effectively the same vowel you'd use in English words like elephant, and in Russian in words like echa.
In IPA, this vowel looks like a big curly E. There is one other E in Russian.
E, as in yel.
It is basically an E with a slightly higher tongue position. It shows up in IPA as a lowercase e, and since it's a new sound for most English speakers, we'll need to go back to tongue placement to really kind of get it. Remember how E was high up and E was in the middle of your mouth? Well, E is in between those two. Yay. This vowel pops up whenever you'd want to say E, but you're doing it after a soft consonant or a Y sound, which leaves your tongue in a slightly higher position. E.
Next up is O, as in облако.
This vowel shows up in IPA as a lowercase o, and it sounds a bit like the American English O, as in no. The main difference is that the American English variant is actually 2 vowels. You start at O, where you kind of want to be in Russian, but you end at no. The Russian version stays put. There's no sound at the end.
So to compare them, you have no versus no.
We have one more main vowel left, which is probably the trickiest one in the language.
It's as in tikva.
So let's talk about what this vowel is doing in your mouth and 2 ways to get there. Vowels are basically composed of 2 ingredients. It's your tongue position and the shape of your lips. If you compare the English vowels E and U, for instance, you'll find that for E, your tongue is all the way up and in the front of your mouth, E, and for U, the tongue is all the way up but in the back of your mouth, U. So if you gradually slip from E to U, E-U, your tongue will move from the top front to the top back, E-U. You may also notice what's going on with your lips. They are gradually closing into a little circle as you approach the U vowel. The Russian vowel U has a tongue position in between E and U. It's actually a little closer to U. And the trickiest part is that it has a lip position that's the same as E. Your lips are relaxed. So here's one route to this vowel. You play that EU sliding game. You go EU, EU, until you get a feel for what your tongue is doing, how it's going forward and back. And then you put your tongue most of the way towards oo, let's say 60 or 70% of the way there. And then you force your tongue to remain there as you relax your lips. So you go EU, and when you're at this E sound, you relax your lips. E, 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 E. Your other route to this vowel is through consonants. And I kind of like this route better. You remember those two Russian sh sounds? There was sh and sh. Well, if you take that first one, that lower pitched one, sh, and you try to pronounce a vowel after it, while moving your mouth as little as possible. You don't move your lips, you keep your tongue up in the back. Basically, you try to say a vowel as lazily as you possibly can. What will tend to come out of your mouth is sh, which is the exact vowel we're looking for. As always, especially with tricky vowels, the better you learn to hear this sound, the better you'll be able to produce it.
If you want to compare this sound to English's E, you can try comparing V with V. V, V, E, E.
And with that, we've gone over the main stressed vowels in Russian. There are 3 vowels left, which show up in unstressed syllables. This is a concept that shows up in English, actually. When we have a word like about, we don't say about, we say about. And that first vowel in that word is a quick, almost nondescript vowel that's more similar to than anything else. About. Russian does this too, and it does it in a very systematic way. They call it vowel reduction. It works like this.
If you see an A or an O vowel in most unstressed syllables, it's pronounced as in palma or echa.
In IPA, it's marked as an upside-down lowercase e, which is actually the same symbol we use for the in about, and it's roughly the same sound in both languages. Now, I said most unstressed syllables with a or o because there is one situation where that vowel sounds a little different.
If that a or o vowel shows up in the syllable that comes right before the stress, then it starts sounding more like an a vowel, as in kartina or corona. It's not actually an a, as in kartina or corona. It's not a, as in kartina or corona. It's a, as in kartina, corona. And our very last unstressed vowel is I,
which sounds very similar to the American vowel I, as in sit.
It shows up whenever you have an unstressed ye, I, a, or o after a soft consonant in words like обезьяна, vitraj, and чародей.
It'll also show up when you start a word with an unstressed ye, or e.
As in игрушка or енот.
You'll see main vowels turn into reduced or unstressed vowels in almost every Russian word that has more than one syllable. The only times you won't see this are in words where the unstressed vowels are u or I, since those two vowels don't get reduced, or in some foreign loanwords.
Like radio, where the last o still sounds like o, even though it's unstressed.
And with that little exception, we've finished all the vowels of Russian. To review, we have 7 main stressed vowels.
I, as in igloo.
Which is a familiar vowel from English.
U, as in улица.
Which is mostly familiar, just make sure you only use a single vowel here. It's u, not oo.
A, as in ангел.
A vowel formed towards the front of your mouth.
E, as in echa.
Which is the same as our familiar e vowel.
E, as in ель.
Which is a vowel halfway in between e and e. You have e, yel.
O, as in облако.
Which sounds a lot like the first half of the American diphthong o. Instead of o, you get o, облако.
And I, as in тыква.
A vowel with relaxed lips and a tongue position in between u and e. And then we had 3 unstressed vowels. There was the unstressed a or o,
which is generally pronounced as in palma or echa, very similar to the sound English uses in unstressed syllables like the in about. There's a as in kartina, corona.
Which is the vowel you'll use when a or o comes right before the stressed syllable.
And I as in енот, обезьяна, vitraj, and чародей.
It's the vowel you'll use when you have an unstressed ye, I, a, or o after a soft consonant, or when a word starts with an unstressed ye or e. And that is it for Russian's vowels. Next stop, some of Russian spelling rules.